crazy. Music ends up being a bit crazy. Can I ask you a few questions? It might be a nice idea. Okay. And then I think we should throw it over to the audience, to the Amiga, to ask us some questions, and I'm sure they've got lots of interesting things they want to ask us. I'm just trying to think when you first came to my attention. And I remember this guy with a big beard, all around here, big curly hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I wore a younger man's clothes then.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't we all? Right.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask about the factory in Corby, in England. Was it Northampton?
Yeah, Northamptonshire.
Northamptonshire. Yeah. Just how big was the Commodore factory in the
UK? We bought a 10-acre site and filled it. It was massive. It was assembly lines. It was warehousing, storage, and offices. It was absolutely huge, all purpose built. And we got, I think it was a £5 million grant from the local council. Because what happened with Corby was that there was a British steel factory there, and British Steel went up to Scotland and got all of these Scottish steel workers and moved them down to Corby, and then very promptly closed it all down and left all these Scottish people there with no jobs. It was really awful. But we inherited the fallout from that because we employed a lot of young people. I think from memory, at one time I think we had something like 570 employees, and a lot of them were young people on the production line. And these young people had a massive chip on both shoulders because they'd been moved from Scotland. Their parents had brought them down and then left without work. And the sad thing is that we're trying to build fairly, I guess, intricate products with assembling the 64s and big 20s and plus 4s and everything else. And yet we had a major disruption. We even had vandalism in the girls' toilets. They were just so pissed off. Not at us, but they took it out on us. It was really bizarre. That was Corby, and everybody moved down, except in fact there was 2 or 3 people in because when I joined Commodore they were in Slough, Ajax Avenue, Slough. And the MD didn't move down because he's got children in school. And John Baxter, the MD was Howard Stanworth. John Baxter was a marketing manager. And they decided not to move because they had to move all their kids and everything.
So, I mean, you mentioned 64s, big 20s, plus 4s.
Yeah.
No Amigas were moved?
No.
And was it closed before?
Yeah, it was too early for Amigas, yeah.
Okay. So we've talked a number of times, usually with a few drinks, and we've talked about some of the interesting parts of your career. I'm particularly interested in the time when you had become joint managing director alongside Colin Proudfoot.
Yeah.
But before that, what were you doing?
Well, directly before that, I was vice president of Commodore Inc., the sales company based in Westchester, where all the engineering was done. We did have assembly facility in Westchester, but not very much of one. Yeah, I was vice president, and basically I'd been nagging at Mehdi Ali for probably 2.5 years.
Now, you didn't spit when you said that.
No.
I'm trying to think of Beth Richards, who was the technician,
engineer,
towards the end of Commodore's life, and she's working on the CD32 and all the really sexy stuff.
No, she was working on the CD1200.
Yeah, and
that was,
actually doing FMV stuff and all sorts, right?
Yeah.
And every time she says Mehdi Ali, she goes Mehdi Ali. And every time, she never misses it.
Well, the problem is if I did that, I'd have an absolutely dry mouth forever. No, Mehdi. I've been nagging Mehdi to let me loose in America because America was underperforming by a zillion. It was incredible how bad, and nobody knew why. But I've been nagging him, so let me loose, I can bloody sort it out one way or another. And that was an interesting time actually, because when I arrived, I had a team of people already. I had 3 sales guys and a team of marketing people, all very good people. So we had a meeting all on our own in one of the boardrooms. And I said, all right, guys, what's going on? Tell me the truth. And they said, well, we can't sell anything. Excuse me. Well, I said, what do you mean you can't sell anything? And they said, we can't. What do you mean? Well, our customers are not paying their bills, so therefore we're not allowed to sell them anything. I said, well, why aren't they paying the bills? We don't know. It's absolutely true. So anyway, I said, okay, look, I need to get to the bottom of it. So I said to them, make some appointments, and I'll come along with you, and we'll find out what's going on. And the very first place we went to was actually Sears in Chicago. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I think it was about the 13th floor of Sears Tower. And we sat in the boardroom, and I think there was 12 executives of Sears all around this boardroom table. It was my sales guy, Steve Salas, and me. So I sat down, introduced myself, said, you know, I've been with Commodore for 9 years or whatever it was at the time. And, you know, I've come to the US to try and get business moving and what have you. I said, all I ask of you guys is for the truth, and I'll give you the truth. And I said, we're a company of integrity, and I certainly, my word is my bond. So I said, do you mind if we start by asking you a very direct question? Would you mind telling me why you're not paying your bills? Very simple, Mr. Pleasance. We're waiting for you to come and take all our stock back. Okay. I said, well, you know, 9 years at Commodore, I've never known us to be a lending library. I think that's exactly what I said. And I said, you know, we just, anyway, next thing you know, they pushed a letter across the table to me, face down. And it was a signed letter by Jim Dion, who was the president of sales of Commodore Inc., sales company. And it was a sale or return agreement. And guess what it was for? CD-TVs. He'd laden them with CD-TVs. Now let's be honest about it. CD-TV is a product that was so far ahead of its time, even hardened, you know, technical people found it difficult to sell. Can you imagine the people in Sears who find it difficult to ring up a bloody till and put something in a plastic bag? Them selling the CD-TV?
You can't say that these days, by the way.
Well, no, I just did. I felt my lips move.
It's not allowed. It's not allowed. It's not allowed, is it? Right? No, we can't say it anymore.
Okay, well, I'll
But
stop my lips.
you're a bit older, so you can say it.
Yeah, I've earned the right. I'm pensionable. Anyway, so there am I staring at this letter, which is signed by Jim Dion, the president of the sales company, offering sale or return on CD-TVs, and they wanted them out. Don't blame them. They should never have been sold them in the first place. This, by the way, happened. Every store I went to was the same deal. Now, what had happened, of course, is that Jim Dion had obviously made up his quarterly quota and claimed his commission and bonus on all these sales, but he wouldn't take them back because it would have exposed him. So there's a situation where I'm faced with, what the hell do I do here? I had to really think hard. Anyway, I said, look, I'll be honest with you, you should never have been sold that product. It was ridiculous, and that's a mistake on our part. And I said, we are honourable, and I will make sure that we take that product back. I think it was something like $460,000 worth. And I said, look, the crazy thing is that we've got products that you should be selling. You know, we've got the Amiga 500, and it's doing really, really well. It's flying out the door. And I said, you guys should be selling that. And I said, I don't really want to start my career in the US with a big negative on my books. I said, how about I'll take all that stock back and you give me an order for Amiga 500s of the same value, so at least I'm not starting with a negative, it's neutral. And if you do that for me, I will produce a pack specifically for Sears that you can sell all on your own. And luckily they went for it.
Was that in like a Batman pack?
Yeah. It was. I actually had it all designed by the people that did all the work for me in the UK anyway. But we had it produced in the US because it was cheaper than shipping it. But anyway, cut a long story short, so I did this, and of course by that quarter end, all I'd got was neutral figures. I hadn't got any sales because I'd taken all the CD-TVs back. Now, Mediali didn't know anything about this, and it just happened that at the quarter end meeting I should have gone to, the sales meeting, in New York. I was in Manhattan. I was on holiday. My two sons are from the UK. And I used to have a boat, which I kept down at Rehoboth Beach, and I was actually on the boat. And anyway, so he's in this meeting with Jim Dion, and Ali rings me up. What the F is this? What is it? And I said, what are you asking me for? He said, well, because you're the person who's taken this product back. I said, no. I said, would you just ask Jim Dion to hand you the envelope I asked him to give you? Which he did. And of course, inside there was copies of all of the sale or return agreements, because Mehdi didn't know anything about it. So Mehdi's sort of shouting off at me, and I said, look, Mehdi, I've now got us back trading with everybody in the US. Take it or leave it. We have no option but to take back that product, because it was written in writing. And I said, but I've now got this trading with everybody. And I tell you what, I was glad I wasn't in that room, because he would have gone berserk. But you know, the thing is, this is very typical of Commodore. They didn't audit anything, didn't know anything about this. How can you run a business if you don't even know what you've sold and what you haven't sold? So that was US. And we started trading. And then, of course, what happened was, after I'd been trading with them for a while, I went to Mehdi and I said, right, my job here for the moment is done. What are you talking about? And I said, I can't do any more here. I can't sell any more to any of the customers. What are you talking about? I said, look, Mehdi, you and I both know we've got the Amiga 1200 coming in the next couple of months, 3 months, whatever it's going to be. And if I sell them any more 500s, the moment the 1200 comes out, they're going to say, take them back, because they'll feel that there's an obligation there, even though there isn't. I said, however, if I leave now and do work something else, if they reorder 500s because they need them, that's their problem, not mine. Which makes business sense, and that's what happened. So I ended up leaving, and the plan was I was going to go back to the US once the 1200s were launched. But in fact, I went back to the CEL business, so all the international business I was doing, which had taken a bit of a tumble since I wasn't involved with it. And then the next thing I know, I'm summoned back to the UK and forced into the MD-ship, which I'd already turned down once before. I was forced into it, so I never went back to the US.
I was always very intrigued. You had the joint managing director with Colin. Why did they do a joint managing director? It's quite unusual.
I did it.
It's your idea.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that, I know what I'm good at. And I can read a balance sheet and all that stuff, but I'm not a financial person. I can't control. And on the very basis that the reason I was summoned back was because Commodore International was in big trouble, and we needed to gather every single penny we could get in. And I'm not qualified for that. So I said, I'll take this role on, but I want to be sole control of sales and marketing, because that's what I'm good at. And Colin was already working there. I think he was a director. But he was already working. I said, make Colin co-MD with me, and between us we can get us out of trouble.
You also didn't do a very good job, did you?
No,
because you made lots of losses.
Yeah,
UK company made lots of losses.
We did. We had.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can explain that. This is I think it's less prevalent now because the tax authorities have got onto it. But Commodore used to play.
I don't know. Google, come on, Apple.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but
Ireland. Oh, I didn't say that.
The Commodore used to play the transfer pricing game, and I'll give you an example. These are just figures; they're not necessarily the right figures, but you'll understand what I mean. So Commodore UK would buy its product. Let's say we bought Amiga 500s and we bought them for $200. Or let's say pounds. It's easier for me. So if we bought them from Commodore International, we paid £200 for them. Now we would warrant them, we would market them, VAT and everything else, and we would sell them for £400, take away what our expenses were, and that was our profit. So if we then make a profit and we're selling a lot of Amigas and 64s and everything else, and then suddenly the taxman sort of wants to grab at us. So all you then do is, instead of paying £200 and selling for £400, you're suddenly paying £400, and every one you sell, you're making a loss because you paid £400 for it. So Commodore International was making the profit at the point of sale from us, but we weren't. So we ended up with, I can tell you exactly, at the time when we declared bankruptcy in the UK, which was 14 months after Commodore went under, we tried to sell Commodore UK as a going concern to Escom, and the big carrot was that we had £6 million worth of tax credits, which meant if they'd have carried on our business, putting their business through Commodore UK, they could have claimed that. That would have meant probably...
Yeah, they'd have paid no tax until they got more than £6 million profit.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was a no-brainer, but they said, we'll only buy Commodore UK if you and Colin stay. And there's no way I wanted to work for them and do Colin, because they weren't ethical people. And then the guy said, Manfred Schmidt, he said, how are you going to feel having to lose, all your people are going to lose their jobs? And we said, you just explain why we don't want to work for you. Because that's exactly the kind of attitude that we don't want to work with.
On a more positive note, how many Amigas do you think your division, your operating division, your company sold?
Ooh. Do you know, I honestly don't know, but what I can tell you that I did a sort of back of the envelope calculation one day about how many computers I think I've sold, and I'm talking about everything from 16s to plus 4s and Amigas and 64s, and I think personally, not my team, personally, I think I sold 2.4 million computers in 12 years. Not bad, is it?
Now, so which was the most, I guess, the most successful division of Commodore with selling Amiga computers?
Oh, Commodore UK, without any shadow of a doubt. Once we launched the bundle concept, and the numbers just went through the roof. What we did is we made Commodore the trendy product. The Amiga 500 was the trendy product that everybody wanted. Yeah. Very thrilling, actually.
But you started selling pets, didn't you?
Yeah, again, I've mentioned all along that I honestly believe that Commodore was always destined to go bankrupt because they never ever had a business plan of any kind. And I can prove that because I was recruited specifically to sell pets into the retail market. Business product into retail. This was before PCs. And I was there 3 months doing research, deciding who I was going to sell to and getting everything ready. And then they rang me up and they said, I've been there about 3 months, a bit less. And they said, oh, your numbers come up, 64 is going crazy. We need somebody to head up national accounts, looking after the big boys, and you're it. And then said, oh, and by the way, we haven't got enough pet product to sell into retail anyway. I've been recruited to do that job. They hadn't even got enough product. So that was my first example of how disorganized and unplanned they were.
Now, some of these stories I've heard before, but I think if you were here last night, you heard me talking about your new book. Well, everyone heard me talking about the new book, which is now, what, April, May, you think?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And I presume there'll be stories in there which we haven't heard before?
Oh, of course, yeah. The trouble is that people keep asking me, and I keep telling them, but before you know it, everybody knows what's in the book, but I don't care, because you people have paid for it already. No, there are some stories that I've held back, and
any sneaky ones you can tell us? You know, no one's listening, it's not being filmed or anything. No one will say anything, it's an oral secret here. We're a little community.
Well, I'm trying to think what I haven't told you. Because I've told most things.
Well, you've told me lots of things, but if one I don't know, that'll be one they won't know.
Yeah, but what don't you know? Yeah, this is a little snippet that I only remembered the other day, and I've actually got to go back into the chapter and add it in. One day, Mehdi Ali rang me up, and he said, right, he said, I want you and I want a couple of our allies, mainly from the software industry, to come with me. We're going to Taiwan. We're going to meet up with somebody there, and I want you to do a little presentation just about what you're doing in the UK. Fine. So I took, I think it was Colin Stokes from Ocean, he was the sales director. And somebody else, I can't even remember.
Ocean of the software company, the
games company. Yeah, they're the guys who did Batman, and I obviously had a good relationship with them. So anyway, we arrive in Taipei, and we go to Acer. And we're there about half an hour, and then Mehdi says, right, he says, what, can you just tell them, kind of do a presentation about what's happening in the UK? Because he said himself, he said, we are their flagship division. And I wasn't really prepared because, anyway, it turns out that his plan was, he was trying to sell Commodore to Acer, but he forgot to tell me He forgot to tell the people I brought along that, because I would have done a presentation that would have blown your socks off if I'd have known. He didn't tell us why he wanted us there. Now, what kind of imbecile is that? And so he's got scratching his ears with him and said, that didn't go down very well, did it? I'm not surprised, no, seriously. How bizarre is that? But it's absolutely true.
It's quite ironic, really, because ESCOM bought Commodore, Gateway bought ESCOM, some other some other company bought Gateway, can't remember who it was, and eventually they were acquired by Acer. So, talk about going round in circles. It all comes around again, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you think back to your Commodore years, what would be your, you talk, the inside story is going to spill the beans, and it's going to talk about some of the reasons Commodore failed. But there must have been good times at Commodore as well.
Well, look, I was there, I think, about 12 and a half years. And to be honest with you, I don't think I'd change a second of it, no matter what happened. Because it was dynamic, it was adrenaline pumping times. And all I know is that when we got things right, boy, did we get them right. We were very innovative. It's hard to say that, isn't it? And let me give you an example, right? I was telling somebody at breakfast this morning. The PCs that we had for a while we had PC 10, 20 and 30. They were not in my range of products because I was a consumer products guy. But I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to put a pack together with the PCs. Because in those days...
Wash your mouth out.
Yeah. No, but hear me out. In those days, nobody even knew how to put a bloody PC and a monitor together. It was that new. So I came up with the idea, let's do a pack. And inside the pack, we had a video which we had professionally recorded, and that was Tim Brooke Taylor, the comedian. And the scene was he was working in an office with a secretary, and their office was a bit of a mess. And he said, we've got to get this all sorted. He comes in with this big box. So anyway, the box that we had designed was the same box for each of the three models. But what we did was we color-coded, I think it was turquoise, pink and yellow, a strip around the end of each of the big box to determine the 10, the 20 and the 30. And we also matched all the peripherals with the right code. So if you weren't sure, as if you bought a yellow banded thing, you knew it worked with the yellow banded PC. Anyway, I didn't have any budget really because it was not my product. We got enough budget to do the video. But I wanted the package to be illustrative of people in working roles, pictures of them, so that people could relate to it. So if you were a painter and you saw a picture of a painter, this is for business for me, or what have you. But of course we didn't have any money at all to pay for actors to come in and be photographed. So we did it. We were all the two. It was so fun.
You're telling me somewhere there's a picture of you
absolutely
putting a PC together.
No, there's a picture. You must be joking. No, what we did, we wanted to represent all kind of trades and professions on the pack, and so we had a guy with a hard hat on. We had a Julie.
Come on, admit it. What was
Wait for it. We had Julie, who was one of our secretaries. She dressed as a nurse, and it was just typical jobs that you'd see. And I was a professor. I had a flat hat on. You'll relate to this, John Paul, and a flat hat and everything else. And I mean, it was just such a laugh.
Are there any of those pictures still available?
I'm trying desperately to get hold of one.
Because that would be funny. Sorry, that'd be.
No, it is funny. It is
that
funny.
That would be really, really interesting to see.
But you must admit that was creative, and it was definitely, off the wall.
Didn't you colour code all the cables as well, though? No, so that you could actually know which one plugged in where.
No,
because that came in later as well. Some of the other.
Yeah, I don't know.
Gateway did it.
But what I can tell you is that one of our dealers was in fact an IBM dealer as well, and he rang us up and said, "I just want to let you know, IBM have just come in and bought one of each of your packs. I want to see what you're doing." But it's just about innovation, really, and we persuaded everybody to get dressed up and take their photograph, and they all came on the pack. And I mean, you must admit it was a good idea. We had a laugh in it.
What year was that? Can you remember?
Oh, My guess, we were at Corby's, and my guess is it was probably 85.
Okay, in 1984, we did something similar. Well, we were
Well, I must have stolen it from you then. Yeah.
In fact, I was it was an oil rig, and it was showing all the people on the rig what jobs they did. We had this artist create this big graphic to go in a brochure, and
Yeah, but that wasn't genuine. That was rigged.
Now, if anyone knows David, he's full of jokes. And that's one of them. No, you have to laugh now. But so yes, so we went around the office, and all the staff they had different jobs on the rig. So I think I was the company man, of course.
No.
And they made my hair like this.
Oh, really?
I had black hair in those days. How did they know?
Yeah, but you mean?
And I had a great big black moustache.
And you mean you haven't changed it since?
No, it's a wig, a bit like yours, right?
Yeah.
But it's amazing how some of these ideas, cross boundaries and industries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I'm desperately trying to find a pack or at least a photograph of the pack.
That would be so good because it would actually go well in the book as well.
Yeah, I mean, I did mention that in the book about this pack, but I just don't have a picture of it.
Now, your book's coming out, April, May, is a Kickstarter backed, and so a lot of people have already put money into the book automatically.
Yeah.
But if someone hasn't got the book, what happens then? Can they order it?
Yeah, I've got my own little website which is called Downtime Publishing.
Slowly, so they can write it down, right?
Downtimepublishing.com.
Okay.
And
they say they were writing there.
No,
they've all backed the Kickstarter project.
I'm pretty sure they have. But I'd like to explain actually why the book has been delayed, and because there's a very valid reason. And that is that when I first announced the Kickstarter, I'd been promised by R.J. Michael, who is, one of the gods really of Amiga. And R.J., I love him to bits. He's a gorgeous man, but he's definitely on that fine line between genius and insanity. And anyway, he promised me right from the beginning he was going to write a chapter, and he kept promising and promising and promising and promising and not delivering. And then we got to the point where, in order for me to release the book, that at the time scale I'd said, which was November, in time for Christmas, all of the publishers, all of the printers were booked because everybody wants their book out for Christmas, and I just couldn't get a slot. So I decided, right, well, I need to delay the book. But what I'll do is I will try and add in further chapters, because to be honest with you, when I read what I'd written over a period of months, it wasn't the story that I wanted. It wasn't really, I mean, it was in a way about Commodore, but it was more a story about David Pleasance because it's through my eyes and I'm relating everything that happened. And I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be about Commodore. So I decided what I'd like to do is to get more people from within Commodore to write their perspectives. And so, for example, at Noyce in October, I've got Jeff Porter, who's the guy who designed the Amiga 500. He's writing a chapter. I've got Ron Nicholson writing a chapter, Randall Jessup writing a chapter, and I've got, there's a guy called Wim Mulders, his name is a very difficult name. He was in charge of Commodore Benelux.
I hope they write it, not this typical stuff. It's the inside stuff.
Well, I was just about to say,
remit, yeah?
I was just about to say that what Wim has written, I mean, I say in my book, I tell the truth about this guy called Bernard Van Tienen, who was in charge of Commodore Holland, and he was a crook. He was a crook through and through, and I've really written about that. But Wim knew him even more intimately, and he's told me some stories about false accounting that's going to be in the book. Because actually, Bernard Van Tienen's dead now, so I don't care. I wouldn't have cared anyway, because I'm telling the truth. And Bernard Van Tienen, of course, became one of the directors of Athlone. Surprise, surprise. But anyway, Bernard Van Tienen was issued a lawsuit for a lot of money, several million guilders, by the Dutch liquidator, as was Petro Tuchenko. He was served a big lawsuit as well. But they were all protected because Mehdi Ali and Irving Gould et al., all of the board, they took out just 2 days before they declared bankruptcy, they took out an insurance policy to protect officers and directors from being prosecuted. And they paid $5 million for this policy, which was non-cancelable, non-retractable, and all of that stuff, so that the insurers could not get out of it. But that $5 million they spent was creditors' money, it wasn't their money.
You mentioned RJ Michael, he doesn't need any defending because he can stand his own 2 feet, but actually towards the end of last year his mother was dying, and she actually died just before Christmas, so I guess he had other things on his mind as well. Yeah,
in fact I can add much more meat to that story. I was over in San Francisco with a couple of the guys from Friend, and we had a meeting with RJ. We actually had dinner with him, and we were in this restaurant, and what happened was that, I mean, RJ is one of these incredible visionaries, but we introduced him to Hogner, and Hogner, who's my boss and who's designed the Friend Unifying platform, is also an incredible visionary. And so RJ asked Hogner to take the floor, and Hogner was talking, and I could tell you I was watching RJ. Every few seconds his jaw was dropping forward and further, because what Hogner was talking about was just incredible. Anyway, RJ was absolutely thrilled to bits, and he said, look guys, he said, I can't let this go on without taking it further. So he said, are you guys available on Wednesday? Come to my house. We'll get some pizzas in. He said, I want to continue this conversation because it's enthralling. And it was all arranged. The next day his mum died, so we didn't go. So I just wanted to fill that in, because that, we actually were there, physically there with him, And of course it did change him, as naturally it would, Yeah.
What was interesting for the last 2 or 3 years, you actually came back on the Amiga scene for the Amiga 30th, wasn't it? That's what's really brought you back in.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, after after we were cheated out of the management buyout, I was really bruised and battered.
Just so I'm sure everyone knows, but when Commodore went bust, Commodore UK kept trading for 14 months, 18 months,
yeah, 14.
and put together a plan to buy out Commodore and the assets.
Yeah.
And a pretty credible plan. And then in the end you were thought by some insider dealing, but that'll all come out in the book. So, right, I'll let you go on from there.
Yeah. So I mean, I was battered and bruised because we'd put such a lot of work into it. We'd got a fantastic business plan, and I can back that up by telling you that in 1994, with the help of that's in my brain from the Coopers and Lybrand, yeah. Sorry.
It's all right. I've heard the stories. So
yeah, but with the help
I'm younger and I can retain the information for about 5 minutes.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, but with the help of Coopers and Lybrand, I'm going to fall off this chair. Coopers and Lybrand, we raised in 1994 $50 million. Now that's hard to do today, but we raised that money because we had a very, very credible and really good businessman. And anyway, we got cheated out of it. I was really bruised after that, and so I just got out. I just under the radar, and then I changed my whole life. I remarried. I moved